The crimson explosion painted the void in brilliant light as the last Devourer ship fell apart. Admiral Tamin gripped the command rail aboard the GCS Harmony, his eyes fixed on the tactical display showing empty space where moments before, metal death had lurked. 3 long years. 3 years of watching worlds consumed, fleets destroyed, countless lives lost. Now it was over. "Fleet status report," he commanded, his voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on his shoulders. "All ships confirming destruction of the final Devourer vessel," reported Communications Officer Yuna, her bioluminescent patches flickering with excitement. "Losses, minimal. The trap worked perfectly, sir." Around them the bridge erupted in subdued celebration. Officers from 12 different species shared smiles, tentacles touching in friendship, energy beings pulsing with joy. The Vorthan Admiral straightened his forearms, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. This coalition had been impossible just cycles ago, natural enemies united by a common threat. "Signal all ships," Tamin ordered. "Operation complete. The galaxy is free." The words felt strange on his tongue. Free. After so long, the concept seemed foreign, but as he watched diverse ships positioning for the journey home, hope bloomed in his chest. The aquatic Delphians were already singing their victory song, their whale-like vessels resonating in harmony. The crystalline Zerathi flickered messages of celebration through light patterns. Even the gaseous Nephilim had formed elaborate patterns in space, their excitement visible as colored wisps. "Admiral," Yuna's voice cut through the festivities, uncertainty replacing her earlier joy. "Sir, we're detecting something on long-range sensors." Tamin's 2 hearts skipped a beat. "Devourers?" "No, sir. Unknown energy signatures. Multiple large vessels approaching from the edge of the system. They're big." The celebration died instantly. Officers rushed to their stations as the tactical display shifted. Red dots appeared on the edge of sensor range, moving with purpose toward their position. As they drew closer, the computer struggled to process their size. "By the ancients," whispered Navigator Kojin, her usually steady hands trembling. "Admiral, each of those ships is 3 times the size of our Dreadnoughts." The bridge fell silent, save for the hum of systems. Tamin felt cold despite his heated uniform. Had they triggered something? Awakened a greater threat by destroying the Devourers? "Sir," Yuna's voice was barely a whisper. "They're hailing us." On screen, the display flickered, showing empty space. Then, impossibly, 12 massive shapes dropped from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were dark as space itself, their hulls covered in what looked like flowing metal. No design in the Galactic database matched them. "Incoming transmission," Yuna announced, her patches now dim with fear. "Put it through." The screen filled with an image that made Tamin's jaw drop. A human face, smooth skin, dark hair, wearing a uniform of blue and white. Behind him, a bridge that looked both primitive and impossibly advanced stretched into the distance. "Greetings," the human said in perfect Galactic standard, his accent strange but understandable. "I am Admiral Jin Wu of the Terran Defense Force. We've been monitoring your conflict with the Devourers." Tamin found his voice, though it cracked slightly. "Impossible. Earth is under quarantine. Your species lacks faster-than-light capability. Our records clearly state—" The human admiral raised one hand, a gesture Tamin recognized from old xenobiology texts. It was meant to stop speech, though the context seemed respectful rather than commanding. "Your records are correct," Jinwu replied. "You quarantined primitive humans 300 standard years ago. However, you failed to monitor our development afterward." On the tactical display, the human ships moved with fluid grace despite their enormous size. They took positions around the galactic fleet with precision that made their own formations. "Look, amateur, we've been watching," Jinwu continued, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. "The Devourers have been troublesome neighbors of ours for quite some time. We decided it was finally time to introduce ourselves properly to the galactic community." Tamin felt his world shift. Earth, quarantined Earth, protected by a simple barrier, because they were deemed too dangerous for galactic society. "But these ships, this technology—" "How?" he whispered, then cleared his throat. "How is this possible?" The human's smile was cold as space itself. "Admiral, You've fought valiantly against the Devourers, but you've only faced their outer scouts. We've come to finish what you started. I suggest you stand aside." The celebration was over. The real questions were just beginning. Admiral Tamin stared at the human face on the screen, his forearms gripping the command rail so tightly the metal began to bend. This couldn't be real. Humans were barely spacefaring when the quarantine was established. They still used chemical rockets. Their computers were the size of rooms. Yet here was Admiral Jinwoo, speaking flawless galactic standard as if he'd been born to it. "Your last contact with Earth was 300 years ago," Jinwoo continued, adjusting something on his uniform. Behind him, the bridge of his ship curved away in impossible distances. Strange lights pulsed along the walls, and Tamin saw humans working alongside beings he didn't recognize. "We've been busy." "Show us your ship," Tamin demanded, surprising himself with the boldness. Around him, his bridge crew leaned forward, equally fascinated and terrified. The view shifted, revealing the exterior of the human vessel. It was magnificent and terrifying. The hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Weapons that defied understanding dotted its surface, and it was enormous, 3 times the size of anything in the Galactic fleet. "The TDF Retribution," Jinwoo said with obvious pride. "1 of 12 in our fleet, built specifically for this day." Communications Officer Yuna's patches flickered rapidly. "Sir, our computers can't identify any of their technology. It's like they're using completely different scientific principles." "That's because we are," Jinwoo answered, apparently hearing their private conversation. "You see, Admiral Tamin, isolation has its advantages. While you were building your great civilization, following your careful rules, we were learning from everything that came our way." The tactical display showed the 12 human ships spreading out. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if controlled by a single mind. But that was impossible. No species had achieved that level of unity. "What do you want?" Tamin asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Jinwoo's expression hardened. "The same thing you wanted, the destruction of the Devourers, but unlike you, we know their true nature." A new window opened on the screen, showing star charts. Red. Marks indicated Devourer positions throughout known space, but there were far more than the Galactic fleet had ever detected. "You fought their scouts," Jinwoo explained. "Small groups sent ahead to weaken you. The real Devourer fleet is building strength beyond the Galactic Rim. They've been using you as target practice." Navigator Kojin gasped. "Those attacks on border worlds?" "Training exercises," Jinwoo confirmed. "They've been studying you, learning your tactics, your weaknesses. Every battle you won taught them something new." Tamin felt sick. Billions had died in those attacks. Entire civilizations wiped out. And it had all been a test? "But you know this because," Tamin began, "because they tried the same thing with us. 73 years ago, a Devourer scout fleet entered the Sol system." Jinwoo's smile was sharp, as a blade. "They wanted our iron, our carbon, our water. They saw a young species ripe for harvest." The human admiral gestured, and the image changed to show Earth. But it wasn't the primitive world from galactic records. Cities of glass and metal covered the continents. Strange structures orbited the planet like metal rings. They underestimated us, Jinwoo said quietly. "We didn't just defend ourselves, we followed them." The bridge was silent. Tamin could hear his own breathing. "You followed them," he whispered. "Through the void. We learned their language. We studied their ships. We captured their technology." Jinwoo's eyes gleamed. "And then we began to hunt them." The screen showed battles in deep space. Human ships pursuing Devourer vessels between the stars. The tactics were brutal, efficient, and completely unlike anything the Galactic fleet had attempted. "We've been at war with them for 70 years, Jinwoo explained. "A shadow war. They never knew we were following them, destroying their forward bases, capturing their scouts." "My God," Tamin breathed, using an old human expression from the language files. "You've been fighting them longer than we have." "Fighting them?" Jinwoo laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "Admiral, we've been winning." On the tactical display, the human ships began to move. Their formation was unlike anything in the Galactic fleet manuals. It was aggressive, predatory. "Now," Jinwoo said, his voice harder than steel, "we finish what we started. The last of their scouts are here. After that, we go after the real fleet. Taemin realized with growing horror that everything he thought he knew was wrong. The galaxy's greatest threat wasn't the Devourers. It was what humans had become while fighting them. The human ships moved like predators stalking prey. Admiral Taemin watched in horrified fascination as the TDF Retribution and its 11 sister ships spread out in a pattern that made no sense according to galactic naval doctrine. But it worked. "Sir," Navigator Kojin whispered. "Their formations. They're hurting them." She was right. The remnants of Devourer scouts, 5 ships that had hidden behind a moon, were being driven into an inescapable trap. The humans weren't just attacking, they were orchestrating a hunt. The first human ship, TDF Vengeance, fired a weapon that defied physics. A beam of pure darkness shot out, and where it touched the Devourer's shields, reality seemed to crack. Like broken glass. The enemy ship's protective barriers simply ceased to exist. "Impossible," breathed Weapons Officer Sung Ho. "Their shields are adaptive. They learn from each attack. That's why it took us so long to defeat them. But the humans weren't using the same weapons twice." As the Devourers adapted to the darkness beam, the Retribution fired something entirely different. A swarm of microscopic objects that passed through shields as if they weren't there and began tearing the hull apart from inside. "Admiral Jinwoo," Taemin called over the communication channel. "Your tactics, how do you know them so well?" The human admiral's response came as his ships cornered a fleeing Devourer. "Simple, Admiral. We've had 70 years to study them." A third human ship, TDF Persistence, unleashed hell. Not the hell of simple energy weapons, but something far worse. The space around the Devourer began to fold in on itself, compressing the ship into an impossibly small point before releasing it as scattered atoms. Yuna's patches had gone completely dark with shock. "Sir, our sensor analysis is complete. The human... They know exactly where each Devourer ship will try to run before they do it." It was true. The Devourers were behaving with machine precision, following programmed escape patterns. But somehow, the humans had anticipated every move. They waited at each exit point like spiders in a web. "Tell me," Taemin demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Tell me how you know all this." The screen showed Admiral Jinwoo's face, calm despite the battle raging around him. "They came to Earth first," he said simply. "September 15th, 2231 by our calendar. 37 ships, they expected easy prey. Another Devourer died, this one consumed by what looked like living fire that ate through its hull like acid through flesh. We were still using fusion drives then," Jinwoo continued. "Still thought the speed of light was absolute. Still believed war was something humans did to other humans. The last Devourer ship was trapped between 4 human vessels. It fired, desperately, its weapons striking the human shields and doing nothing. The energy simply flowed around the human ships like water around rocks. They harvested 3 of our cities," Jinwoo said, his voice carrying old pain. 60 million people, melted them down for metal and organic compounds." His eyes hardened. That was their mistake. The trapped Devourer ship suddenly stopped, firing. It began broadcasting something in binary, surrender protocols the galactic computers recognized. "We don't accept surrender," Jinwoo stated flatly. The TDF Retribution's main weapon powered up. They didn't when they came for Earth. The final blast was different from all the others. It didn't destroy the Devourer ship, it unmade it. The vessel simply stopped existing, leaving behind empty space. 70 years, Taemin said quietly. "You've been fighting them for 70 years. Not fighting them," Jinwoo corrected. "Hunting them, learning from them. We followed their raiding parties, captured their ships, took their technology apart piece by piece. The human ships regrouped with the same impossible precision they'd shown throughout the battle. Dead Devourers floated in space around them, or what little remained. Every ambush they set taught us their patterns," Jinwoo explained. "Every weapon they used became part of our arsenal. Every tactic they employed was catalogued and counted." Captain Minji from the heavy cruiser Silver Star spoke up. "Sir, if you've been studying them for so long, why reveal yourselves now?" Jinwoo's smile was sharp as a blade. "Because the scouts are gone and the real enemy is coming. This was just practice for what's beyond the galactic rim." Tamin felt his world shift again. Everything they'd fought, everything they'd suffered, it had all been preparation for something worse. "You mean," he began. "The main Devourer fleet," Jinwu said quietly. "The one that makes these scouts look like gnats. They're coming to finish what they started. And now that their scouts are dead, they'll know we're ready for them." Through the view screen, Tamin could see the human ships preparing to depart. They moved with purpose, like wolves who had tasted blood and were eager for more. The silence. On the Galactic command bridge stretched like pulled metal. Admiral Tamin stared at the human admiral on screen, his forearms trembling slightly. Around him, officers from 12 different species looked equally shaken. "What did you just say?" Tamin whispered. Admiral Jinwu stood on his ship's bridge, hands clasped behind his back. The strange lights of human technology pulsed around him like a heartbeat. "You heard correctly, Admiral. This entire war, you've been fighting shadows." Communications. Officer Yuna's patches flickered rapidly. "Sir, we're receiving data transmissions from their ships, battle records, star charts, ship movements, the main display filled with information that made Tamin's heads spin. Star maps showing Devourer, positions going back decades, battle reports from conflicts in systems the Galactic fleet had never heard of, ship designs that had evolved through hundreds of encounters." "This is impossible," breathed Navigator Kojin. "According to this, you've been fighting them for 70 years? 73 years, 2 months and 16 days, Jinwu corrected, since they first came to harvest Earth." A window opened on the display showing video records. Human ships engaged in battle with Devourers between stars no Galactic citizen had ever visited. The tactics were different from anything in the Galactic. Military manuals, aggressive, brutal, effective. "Every Devourer raid you stopped," Jinwu explained, "was a ship fleeing from us. Every victory you celebrated was against forces we'd already weakened." Tamin felt sick. "The attack on Velen Prime, the siege of Nexus Station, they were running from us," Jinwu confirmed. "Straight into your territory. We could have warned you, but—" He shrugged. "The quarantine. You made it very clear. Humans weren't welcome in galactic space." The video log showed battle after battle. Human ships pursuing Devourer fleets across the void. Not defensive actions, but aggressive hunts. The humans had made war into an art form. "But your technology," protested Science Officer Dr. Hana from her station. "You shouldn't have this level of advancement, not from a quarantined species." Jinwu smiled coldly. "Isolation has advantages, Doctor. While you were forming committees and following protocols, we were adapting. Every Devourer ship we caught gave us new technology. Every battle taught us new tactics." Another window opened, showing human shipyards. Massive construction bays where captured Devourer technology was being integrated into new designs. Human ships that looked nothing like the primitive vessels from 300 years ago. "We reverse-engineered their hull materials," Jinwu explained. "Figured out their shield harmonics, learned their language, became better at being Devourers than they were." The display shifted again, showing interstellar maps. Red lines traced Devourer fleet movements over the decades. But now Tamin could see the truth. The Devourers hadn't been expanding into Galactic space. They'd been retreating from something. "You've been herding them," Tamin realized, "for decades, pushing them toward us." "Not intentionally at first," Jinwu admitted. "We were just following them, hunting them. But when we realized you were in their path, we decided to see how you'd handle the challenge." Captain Sungmin of the destroyer Fast Wind spoke up angrily. "You let billions die." "Billions were already dead," Jinwu replied without emotion. "The Devourer's plan was to harvest the entire galaxy. We've been preventing that. But we needed to know if the galactic species could defend themselves. The truth was overwhelming. Everything they thought they knew was wrong. The galaxy's greatest military victory had been, what? A test, a final exam? The real Devourer fleet," Tamin said slowly. "The one beyond the galactic rim is 10,000 times larger than what you've faced," Jinwu confirmed. "They sent scouts first, small forces to test and weaken you. The main invasion fleet is coming now." New data flowed to the galactic computers, images from beyond known space showing a mechanical armada that defied comprehension, ships the size of moons, constructs that looked like metal planets. Been preparing for them, Jinwoo said. Building weapons, training fleets, becoming the monster necessary to kill monsters. The human ships around them suddenly seemed different. Not just advanced, but designed for a specific purpose. Built by a species that had spent decades learning how to kill one particular enemy. Why reveal yourselves now? Taemin asked. Jinwoo's expression softened slightly. Because the real war is about to begin. And despite everything, we'd rather have allies than mourners. The display showed the galactic rim, where stars began to dim. Something vast was moving between them, blotting out light as it approached. The main Devourer fleet will arrive in 37 days, Jinwoo announced. The question isn't whether you'll fight with us or against us. The question is whether you'll fight with us or die alone. Taemin looked around his bridge at species that had spent centuries avoiding conflict, preferring diplomacy and trade. Now they faced an enemy that understood only consumption. Humanity had spent those same centuries becoming the perfect predator. There was no going back. The transport beam deposited Admiral Taemin on the deck of the human Dreadnought, with technology that should have been impossible. No jolting, no disorientation. One moment he was on his bridge, the next he stood in a corridor that defied understanding. Lieutenant Heejin smiled at his shocked expression. "Welcome aboard the Retribution, Admiral. The captain is waiting." The corridors seemed to stretch forever. Taemin's enhanced vision, capable of seeing in 17 different spectrums, couldn't find the wall's endpoints. The metal itself seemed alive, flowing and shifting subtly as they walked. "How?" Taemin asked, touching the wall. It was warm like living tissue. "We learned from everything that tried to kill us," Heejin replied simply. She was young, maybe 25 in human years, yet she wore technology that looked like it belonged to a civilization thousands of years old. The Devourers weren't the first, just the worst. They passed a viewing portal that showed space outside, but something was wrong. The stars were different colors, arranged in patterns that hurt to look at. "Lieutenant, where are we?" "Folded space," she answered casually. "We can't show you our real locations yet. Security reasons." The bridge doors opened without sound. Inside, Admiral Jinwoo stood before a display that showed the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated approaching threats from beyond the rim. Each marker represented a force larger than anything the Galactic fleet had ever assembled. "Admiral Taemin," Jinwoo greeted. "I hope the transport wasn't too uncomfortable." "Your technology," Taemin began, "is the result of necessity," Jinwoo finished. "Come, let me show you what we've learned." The display zoomed out, showing space beyond the galactic rim. Dark shapes moved between dead stars. Ships, if they could be called that. Constructs the size of moons, mechanical planets, a swarm that blotted out entire star fields. 73 years ago, this is what almost reached Earth, Jinwoo explained. The scouts they sent ahead were just bait. They wanted us to fight, to reveal our capabilities. Taemin felt cold despite the warm air. "And you've been preparing for them ever since?" "We had no choice. They harvest entire civilizations, strip planets down to the core, turn living beings into raw materials." Jinwoo's voice was steady, but his eyes held old pain. "We couldn't let that happen to Earth, or anywhere else." Lieutenant Heejin manipulated controls that looked more like art than science. The display changed, showing human shipyards hidden in asteroids, moons, even inside gas giants. They weren't just building ships, they were manufacturing war itself. "We've built 300 ships like this one," Jinwoo said, "each one designed to kill Devourers efficiently. But we need more." "More?" Taemin asked. "More allies, more ships, more time." The human admiral turned to face him. "Your galaxy has resources we need, manufacturing capability. Most importantly, you have people willing to fight." The display showed galactic fleet movements. Their formations looked clumsy compared to human precision, but they were numerous. "You're asking us to join your war," Taemin said. "I'm asking you to join the war that's already coming," Jinwoo corrected. "With or without us, they're coming. In 36 days, the first wave will reach the galactic rim. In 200 days, they'll be at your core worlds." Data streams flowed to Taemin's personal display, battle projections, casualty estimates. The numbers were terrifying. "What do you want from us?" he asked. Lieutenant Hyojin stepped forward. Everything, your manufacturing, your ships, your knowledge of galactic civilization. She paused. Your acceptance that isolation is over. The E. Truth hit Taimin like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't been contained by the quarantine. They'd been preparing. While the galaxy enjoyed peace, humans had become something else. Something designed to survive in a universe full of predators. You're not human anymore, he whispered. We're what humans had to become, Jinwoo replied without shame. The question is, what will you become? The display flickered, showing staging areas beyond the rim. Coordinates filled the screen, locations where Devourer forces were gathering. We can't stop them alone, Jinwoo admitted, but together we might survive. The galaxy can remain the galaxy, or it can become a Devourer feeding ground. Choose. Taimin looked at the data, at the approaching doom, at the humans who had sacrificed their innocence to prepare for this moment. The celebrations really were over. Now came the hard choices. If we join you, then we teach you to hunt, Jinwoo said simply. Like we learned. Like we had to. The stars on the display seemed dimmer somehow, or maybe that was just the shadow of what was coming. Humanity had spent decades becoming something terrible to fight something worse. Now it was the galaxy's turn to change. Time was almost up.